Welcome back, dear students. This is the part 5 of object oriented introduction to object oriented programming concepts. Today we'll be dealing with principles of object oriented programming. Okay, so, students, for any program to qualify or to claim as an object oriented programming language, it should have the ability to work with two things, classes and objects. And in the previous lecture you have already seen what are objects and classes, right? Now, in addition to this, it must also use and implement the following four fundamental object oriented principles, okay, which we are going to discuss in today's lecture. The first principle is the abstraction, which is also called as data abstraction. The first important principle is abstraction or data abstraction. We'll discuss what is data abstraction later in the later part of this lecture. Okay? Now, the next principle is encapsulation. The next important object oriented programming principle is encapsulation. Then we have inheritance. Okay, and the fourth and the final one is polymorphism. Pardon the spelling is polymorphism. Polymorphism. Okay, now uh, object oriented programming language that does not adhere to these four principles or does not follow these principles, it cannot claim to be an object oriented language. Any programming language that does not follow these four rules, it cannot claim to be object oriented programming language. For any programming language to claim itself to be object oriented, it must follow these four principles, which is abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, now let us understand what these principles are. We'll start with data abstraction. What is the first principle, which is the data abstraction? In order to use something, you do not need to know how it works. If you use anything, it is not definite that you need to know everything about that thing to use that particular thing. Let's take a look at the example. Okay, for example, look at this, a coffee machine. I hope you have seen a coffee machine. This is a coffee machine. A coffee making machine is a very complex machine. Okay, but you don't need to know how it actually works. You don't need to know the internal working of this coffee making machine. You just need to press the relevant button and it will make some quirky noises and you will get a nice cup of coffee. You just need to know which buttons to press. Yes, and you will get a nice cup of coffee. You don't need to know how the button is, interacting with the internal machinery. Yes or no? This is called as abstraction. This hiding the internal details of how the system is working, this part is called as abstraction. So abstraction refers to the act of representing only essential features without including the background details. You don't need to know all these background details, what is happening at the back. Okay, you don't need to know these technical things. You just need to know which buttons to press. You press the button and you get the output. Same thing happens in a computer also. You don't need to know how the internal circuitry of the computer works. You just press the buttons and the computer will give you the desired output. This thing is called as data abstraction. Here, the abstraction presents only the essential features, that is, the dispensing buttons of the coffee machine. See these buttons. Okay. Now, the dispensing buttons hide all the complexity of making a coffee behind them. Okay. Abstraction helps to hide the internal implementation details that are not relevant to the user. Okay? Moreover, abstraction is relative to the perspective of the viewer. What does this mean? There can be different levels of abstraction. For different types of users, there can be different levels of abstraction. Okay? Now see, there can be different abstractions of an entity depending on the viewpoint of the user. For example, for a user of a wristwatch, you just need to see the dial and you'll know what the time is, right? But for a technician of a wristwatch, he needs to know the internal details. Yes or no? So for a technician, it has a different level of abstraction, and for a normal user, it has a different level of abstraction. So there can be different levels of abstraction for different types of users. Similarly, if we take an example of an ATM machine, while using an ATM machine to withdraw money, you just insert your debit card in the provided slot and follow the on screen instructions. After providing the correct PIN and entering the desired amount, you collect money from the machine. Yes, here the user only interacts with the essential features of the ATM machine. Okay, card reading slot. This is the card. This is the card reading slot. The touch screen for input and the money dispensing slot. The user is only going to interact with these few things. The user does not need to know or understand the background process of the machine performs. Okay, like reading the card details. How will the machine read the card details? You don't need to know. You just insert the card and you know that the machine will read it automatically. But don't need to know how it will read. Okay, then how it is verifying the pin? You don't need to know how the machine will verify the correct pin, how it is counting the cash inside. You don't need to know the internal working of how the machine is counting the cash. Okay, however, an ATM's technician, the okay, does need to understand these background processes so that he can identify and fix the issues of the ATM machine. A normal user doesn't need to know these background processes, but a technician of the ATM does need to know. For him, the essential features of money dispensing slot is not as same as the normal ATM user. The essential features for him will be the mechanism of the counting, the dispensing of the cash behind the scenes, and so on. Therefore, there can be two abstractions of an ATM machine, one for the ATM user and another for the ATM technicians. And there can be many other levels of abstraction for the same machine. Okay. Now, using abstraction, the objects expose only the essential features to the outside world and hide rest of the details. They will expose only the essential features and hide rest of the details. That's why this concept is also termed as data or information hiding. The outside world sees only a simplified version of the actual object. This is for the outside world, this is for the technicians or the engineers to know. This is called as data or information hiding. Okay, now the details of how features are implemented inside the object are not important to the outside world as long as they fulfill their assigned role correctly. Okay, now you let's talk about the next important principle of object oriented programming, which is called as encapsulation. Okay, encapsulation. Encapsulation. Have you seen a capsule? A capsule contains something inside it. Okay, something is, encapsulated inside the medicine is encapsulated inside a capsule. So let's talk about the next important feature of principle of object oriented programming, encapsulation. Now you are all familiar with the volume control keys or knobs, okay, on the music playing machine. Yes. Now you use this knob to control the volume of the music playing in the stereo system. Okay, in this scenario the volume control knob is said to be well encapsulated from the other controls. Yes, or the outside world, because it is going to do only one thing, it is not going to do other thing. If you rotate this volume control knob, it will change the volume, it will not change the song. Yes, why it will not change the song? Because it is well encapsulated from other controls. But when you want to change the volume, you only have one method of affecting this. Yes, which is by moving the knob either clockwise or anti-clockwise. You cannot affect the volume by using any other control on the music player. You have to use this knob only. Now, if you press, if you're pressing the play button or the if you're pressing the play button or pause button or forward button or reverse button, it won't change the volume, right? The volume can only be changed using the volume control button. Okay, now in this case the volume control knob is said to be well encapsulated from other controls and objects, from the outside world. Okay, now let us recall that the attributes of an object are represented by data and behavior is represented by functions that the object can perform. Yes, we had already seen that every object has two important things, that is attributes and behavior. Okay, now the attributes are managed by the data and the behavior is managed by the or represented by the functions that the object can perform. We have already seen that this encapsulation is a mechanism. Encapsulation is a mechanism that binds the data and the functions together into a single unit. Look in this figure. The data and functions are encapsulated inside the class. Yes, this important principle is called as encapsulation, wherein the data and functions are wrapped or bind together inside a single unit. Now, this encapsulation keeps both data and functions safe from the outside world or from any unauthorized access or misuse. The access to the data and the code or the functions inside a class is tightly controlled. Okay, only the legitimate function can interact with these data and functions. No unauthorized access is allowed. Now, only the functions that are inside the class can access the data. In this way, the data and functions are said to be encapsulated into a single entity, just like closing them both in a capsule. Okay? Now, let us take another real life example of a washing machine. Okay? Now, the start button of the washing machine the start button of the washing machine encapsulates lot of complexity behind it. Here, abstraction shows only the essential features, that is the start button. The encapsulation helps to hide all the internal details of the washing machine, that is filling of the water, start the drum and rinse, etc. You okay? So this with this we complete the second principle, which is called as encapsulation. Now let's talk about the third important principle, which is called as inheritance. Now, you might have studied the term heredity in biology, which means children inheriting characteristics of their parents. Now, for example, the hair color, the nose shape, the eye color, your hair color, your nose shape, your eye color is inherited from your parents. Yes, you have learned this in your biology. Similarly, Java, being an object oriented programming language, allows one class to inherit from another. Okay, for example, there are objects that are related to each other in hierarchical way, such as birds. Okay, now see, there is a big class which is called as birds. Now in this there are two types: walking birds. Yes, and what is the example? The ostrich. Ostrich is a walking bird. Yes, then all kinds of birds have the attributes like name, size, color, average lifespan, etc. They also have behavior like eat, sleep, breathe, etc. Now, these can be considered as generic attributes and behavior of the bird class definition. Okay, these birds, these attributes and behaviors will be shared among all birds unless they have specific differences that separate them from the rest. For example, in bird class there are two types: flying birds and walking birds. Now all the birds that come under flying birds category will have some common attributes and behavior, like they can fly. Their behavior is they can fly. Now even a parrot and owl both share these same same behavior. And if we talk about the walking birds like ostrich and penguin, both are walking birds, and walking is their attribute behavior. So they are sharing this behavior. Yes, from the bird class, specific birds can be inherited. For example, flying birds. For example, a parrot, all the behaviors of parrot can be inherited from this flying bird. As in the same manner, some of the behavior of owl class can be inherited from the flying birds class. Now, the flying bird class needs to define only its own unique attributes such as flying distance, timing of flying, and places where they fly. The rest of the generic or general attributes and behavior are inherited from the birds class, because some attributes are going to be shared by these both classes from the birds class. In this example, the flying bird class is said to be derived class of the birds class, thereby inheriting all of its characteristics and behavior. Meanwhile, the birds class is said to be the parent class of the flying birds class. Inheritance. Now, inheritance, with this understanding, let us formally define inheritance in terms of object oriented programming. Now, inheritance is a powerful mechanism by which one class acquires the property of another class. Through inheritance, a class can acquire the properties of other class. For inheritance, first of all, you need to define a common class that contains the general features of an entity or object. Then you define another class as an extension of that common class, inheriting everything from the common class. The common class that gets inherited is called as the parent class or the base class or the superclass. And the class that inherits from the common class is called as the child class or derived class or the subclass. Now, if we don't apply inheritance, each object would need to define all of its characteristics. Yes, for example, car and bike both are vehicles. So, if we define a class vehicle, and see, all vehicles have a general behavior. What they have the general behavior of transporting from one place to another or moving from one place to another, right? Even a class is going to is used for transportation and a bike. So this is the general characteristics of both the classes. So we can give this behavior inside the we can define this behavior inside the vehicle class, and then that behavior can be inherited to both this class. We don't need and for every other vehicle, that behavior can be inherited from the vehicle class only. Now, it will be very pity to take all the trouble to create a class and then be forced to create a brand new class that has same functionality over and over again and again. Okay? However, using inheritance, an object needs only to define those qualities that make it unique within its class. Okay? Then, the rest of the general qualities are inherited from the parent class. Now, inheritance is transitive. It means that all the attributes and behavior are passed from the parent class to the child class, and then from the child class to their children and further. Using this figure as an example, an instance of class parent also inherits all the attributes and behavior of the flying birds. So this class parent, it contains all the attributes of this class, okay, and all the attributes of birds class also. Yes. Now, let's talk about the fourth principle of object oriented programming, which is called as polymorphism. Okay. So, over here, word polymorphism. Over here, polymorphism means many forms. Poly means many, and morphos in Greek means form. So, the word polymorphism means many forms. Now, this word comes from the Greek word poly, meaning many, and morphos, meaning form. Polymorphism is the ability of a function or an object to acquire multiple forms. Okay, let us understand with an example. Okay, for example, if we talk about shape, if there is a class shape, okay, let's talk about this example. Now see here, there is a parent class which is called as shape, this class shape. Okay, now see, each object in the shape class has attributes such as size, number of sides, and color and number of corners. Each shape has behavior such as being drawn, being erased, and being colored. Each shape has behavior such as being drawn, erased, colored, etc. Therefore, will have the corresponding functions such as draw. This is the draw function. This is the erase function, and this is the color function. Okay. Now, from this base class, specific types of shapes can be inherited, like the circle, like a rectangle or a triangle. As shown in the figure, same draw function can be used to handle different types of shapes irrespective of whether it is a circle, rectangle or a triangle. However, calling the draw function for a circle object causes different code. See, this is a different code and the output is a circle. Okay, and for a triangle will be a different code and an output will also be different, but the function will be draw, and the codes written inside the draw function for this circle will be different, and the code written inside the draw function for a triangle will be different. With this understanding, let us now define polymorphism in terms of object oriented programming. So, polymorphism is a mechanism by which you can send the same message to different objects, and each object can respond in a different way based on its class. Okay. Now, polymorphism, just like the draw message, can draw a circle, a rectangle, or a triangle. An accelerate function command can accelerate. Sorry for the interruption, dear students. Now, just like the draw function can draw a circle, a rectangle, or a triangle, an accelerate function or a command can accelerate a train, a car, or a aeroplane. Okay. But how does polymorphism help in object oriented programming? Polymorphism helps to reduce the complexity by allowing one interface to specify a general type of action. So, polymorphism helps to reduce the complexity by allowing one interface to specify a general type of action. Now, code designed and written with polymorphic capabilities is unaffected by addition of new type of code. For example, in the previous illustration, a new boat class can be added that can use the same accelerate function without any problems. Adding new type is a common way of extending object oriented programs. Previously, we had only a train and a car and an aeroplane, but now we have included the boat also. Now, polymorphism therefore thereby reduces the software development and maintenance cost. Now, let us quickly look at how all the four principles are working together. What are these principles? Again, data abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and your inheritance. Okay, let us understand how all these functions are working together in the object oriented programming. Okay, for example, in real life, a mobile phone is an excellent example of an object oriented design. Let us understand how it uses all the four principles. Making a call from a mobile phone hides a tremendous or a lot amount of complexity behind a very simple interface. And as an end user of the mobile, do you ever need to know how this call will be connected to another person? No, you just need to use the interface provided. Here, the abstraction helps to show only the essential features to make a call, that is the dial button, and it hides all the other complexities from the normal user. The encapsulation helps to hide all the complexity of making a call, that is connecting to the other device via circuitry and the mobile network. You, as an end user of the mobile, rely on inheritance to operate different types of mobile phones. Remember, when you say different types in everyday language, it means subclasses in object oriented programming. Whatever mobile phone, whether a mobile phone is an iPhone, Samsung, Xiaomi, they are all more or less they all more or less operate in the same way to make a phone call, because they are all subclasses of the superclass, same superclass mobile. Just key in the number and uh, all the in to call from any mobile, be it Samsung, be it iPhone or any other mobile, you just need to key in the number and press the dial button and it will make a call. However, few smartphones may have different graphic user interface. They may have different graphic user interface, but more or less their calling feature is same. Okay, but it takes only a short time for us to adjust to different interface, because you understand the key features of the superclass mobile. You know how to operate any mobile. That's why it takes very less time for you to adjust to different mobile phones. Finally, let us see how polymorphism comes into the picture. Polymorphism. Mobile manufacturers offer a wide range of phones, but the way of operating a phone is essentially the same. For example, iPhone X has models iPhone XS, iPhone XS Max, iPhone XR. With any of these forms of iPhone X, you still press the dial button to make the call and press the end button to end the call. The same interface is used to control a number of different implementations. You have understood now that with help of the four pillars of object oriented programming, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism, the individual components are transformed into a real world phone object, which is a complete entity in itself. Since the human mind is more used to seeing things as whole objects, you can apply the same principles to the computer programs. In a computer program, you can apply abstraction to identify the data objects, inheritance to allow classes to acquire the property of another class, encapsulation to hide the complexity from the outside world so that no unauthorized access or action takes place. It also ensures that a user is not overwhelmed with additional details. And polymorphism to design a generic interface to specify a general type of action. In the next lecture, students, we are going to discuss difference between object oriented programming and procedure oriented programming. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself and be well.